We've got sort of 3.5 in the bank, 3.5 million in the bank still. And exploration in this part of the world is pretty inexpensive. There's lots of drill rigs around there. It's easy to get onto the ground. There's good access. So all of that stuff's already done, all the hard work.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by CGN Resources Managing Director, Stan Wholley. Stan, very good to speak with you. For viewers new to CGN Resources, can you start by giving us a quick overview of the company's main projects and exploration focus across Western Australia?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Thanks for making the time. So for those unfamiliar with CGN, we listed on the stock exchange, Australian Stock Exchange, in 2023 in October, on the back of our Webb Project, which is a really significant land holding up in the West Arunta, which I guess has been probably made famous by our next door neighbour, WA1, who made a quite significant niobium discovery there. They went there looking for IOCG deposits, as did we, which stands for iron oxide copper gold. That area is sort of regarded as quite prospective for those types of deposits. And so we raised $10 million and told our shareholders that that's where we would go and look. So we've done a lot of sort of geoscience work that's involved 2 quite substantial drilling programs, which we were quite fortunate to get partially funded by the exploration incentive scheme by the WA government. To date, sadly, we haven't made a discovery up there, but the place where we were drilling has never really seen drilling before. So it is a real greenfields target, big picture, sort of elephant country type geology. So we've gone and tested some of the targets. We've generated about 11 targets, of which we've tested 5. And so there's still quite a bit of work to be done there. But that part of Western Australia, for those who don't know, is subject to quite, harsh weather conditions during our summer months. It's subject to really high temperatures, often flooding rain, which is just difficult to manage work. So we can really only work there from sort of March till November, and the rest of the year we have to do other things, which is why we've sort of gone on, while we've been looking at Webb, and developed a series of other projects which we think really speak volumes for what we like to do, which is use good geoscience to find areas that we think are underexplored or undervalued, and then go and explore them. That's what led us to Leonora, our Christmas Well and Panhandle projects, and it also led us to some significant tenure up in the Paterson Province, about 50 kilometres from Telfer and 40 kilometres south of Nifty, in the Gunnion Basin, which has a number of really good copper projects in it, Nifty probably being the standout there. And we have the same rocks as Nifty, and we're about, like I said, about 30 kilometres along strike, good structure. There's been copper and other base metal hits in our tenure before. So we're just going through the process of getting all of this tenure, through the compliance process, which, well, it's taking longer than I'd like, but that's just what we've got to do.
Stan, you've just secured 2 new exploration licenses south of Leonora. What makes these tenements so important for the Panhandle projects, and how do they enhance the company's overall landholding in the region?
Yeah, so look, I guess it was good planning, good geoscience, and a bit of good luck that took us to Leonora. There was some companies that let hold of grounds up around Leonora. Christmas Well is where we first landed. And then we've sort of just been opportunistically looking for tenure that was either becoming available or if we thought we could do deals on. And over the period of, it's about, I suppose, 10 to 11 months now, we've been quite fortunate to assemble 2 quite substantial packages for a district as well endowed with gold as Leonora is. And so a few months ago, Paterson Resources surrendered a couple of tenements. We got into a ballot with those with another company, and we were fortunate enough to win what I think, of course, is the best 2 tenements out of that ballot process. And I say that because they contain a number of quite high-grade historical drill hole hits, which to some extent have been followed up, but certainly leave the door open for more discovery where those trends go undercover. That sort of piece of work has never really been done for a number of reasons. I guess people got caught up with trying to replicate or extend that really high grade zone without thinking about perhaps there's a bigger system there. So we think it's a really well located package of ground now. We've won those 2 tenements. We have 3 other tenements which are now all contiguous in that land package. It's a really strategic package too. It lies between sort of Genesis Minerals Ulysses mine to the south, which is only just to the south of our tenure, and off the northern end of our tenure is the Gunnion mine, the main highway that services this part of Western Australian goldfields runs right along the edge of our property. So it's really great access. It's got good opportunities to get power to site if we ever need that. There's 2 mills within 20 kilometres of the project. And the right stratigraphy, which is the most important thing. The stratigraphy that hosts the Ulysses mine and a little bit further along Admiral Orient Well basically is folded around and up into our tenure and has, in an area as mature as Leonora, it has seen some drilling, but the holes that have been done there where those rocks are covered really hasn't been done in a systematic way. And they've all intersected gold, but perhaps not as much that interested people. When you're drilling out a major mine like Ulysses or up at Gwalia, it tends to take your resources to those things more. And so, look, we think there's still a lot of exploration upside potential within the tenure.
I mean, looking at the Christmas Well project, how are you preparing for exploration there once the tenure is granted?
Yeah, we're very close on that too, I think. We've been in negotiations with the traditional owners to get a land access agreement, which covers all of the tenure, which is important. We've been fortunate to sort of squeeze in even the most recent tenure at Panhandle. It's all one group, the Darlow Group. So we've agreed the agreement, if you like, and now it's just waiting signatures from the traditional owner group, which we're hopeful is imminent. And once that happens, that will be the last objection to, and then they should go to grant quite quickly. So we're hopeful that we'll be drilling there sometime in this last quarter of the year. And same, at Christmas Well, there's a number of really interesting hits, which haven't really been followed up systematically either. There's certainly scope to follow up on those hits that occur in historical drilling, but we've also got a very large land package which has some very interesting rocks which have never really been looked at in a meaningful way. So we're quite excited to get out and drill test all of them.
Stan, with so many irons in the fire, what should your investors be looking out for over the next 6 to 12 months?
Look, I think over in the short term, I'll say the next few months, it will be very much focused on the work that we're getting done at Christmas Creek and the Panhandle project. So I think you'll see, some announcements around, that process of granting of tenure, a traditional owner agreement signed. We'll get out on the ground as soon as possible after that to do some, I guess, first pass look, go and do some rock chip sampling, maybe some surface sampling, and over some of our preferred targets. And then we'll roll into drilling. So in that sort of 3-month window, I'd like to think we'd get a drill rig out there the following 3 months. I'd like to think we'll have some assays and so forth to talk about, and maybe follow-up programs. If the grades are good enough, we'll certainly roll on with that. We're quite fortunate that we still have a pretty good funding package behind us. We've got sort of 3.5 in the bank, 3.5 million in the bank still. And exploration in this part of the world is pretty inexpensive. There's lots of drill rigs around there. It's easy to get onto the ground. There's good access. So all of that stuff's already done, all the hard work. And then hopefully earlier next year, it's a bit hard to say exactly how long that'll take. We'll get the Broadhurst project granted. Again, we're still in early stages of negotiations on the traditional owner with the Matu up there, but we're confident that we'll move through that process. We've always managed to create good relationships with the traditional owner groups we work with, and I don't see why these will be any different. And then so we'll go there, and then after that, probably mid-year, we'll be looking to talk about what's going to be happening at Webb. As I said, we've still got a number of really exceptional targets to go and drill there. It's really The order of which we do it is kind of dependent on how we go with getting the Broadhurst tenure granted.
Stan, a lot to talk about. I hope you'll keep us posted with your progress. Thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thanks very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to speaking to you again after the discovery.
Stan Wholley, the Managing Director of CGN Resources.